the day the law fought back. The grand marble halls of the Federal District Courthouse in Washington, D.C. were rarely silent, but on that particular morning, a weight hung in the air that no one could quite name. From janitors to seasoned reporters, everyone sensed history approaching like a distant storm. At the center of it all sat Judge Evelyn Pierce, a woman whose entire career had been built on facing those who thought themselves untouchable. Her posture was a study in calm authority, her every movement radiating the kind of dignity that cannot be purchased or faked. Opposite her, in the seat of the accused, sat Veronica Lancaster. The name alone was enough to silence any room. Veronica, the billionaire heiress whose family's wealth spanned continents, whose connections reached deep into the political machinery of America, whose smirk could chill the blood of anyone who had ever tried to challenge her. She was not simply wealthy. She was powerful in the way that history books quietly resent. Next to her, a legal team fidgeted, eyes darting between their client and the judge, each one praying silently that today's hearing would go by the script Veronica's script. But it would not. As Judge Pierce entered the courtroom, everyone stood. Everyone except Veronica Lancaster. Cameras flashed, reporters took notes, and viewers around the country watched live as Veronica sat, arms folded, gaze fixed forward in open defiance. "Mrs. Lancaster, in my courtroom, everyone stands," Judge Pierce announced, her voice even and unyielding. "I will allow you the opportunity to do so now." A tense silence followed, stretching into something unbearable. Then, in a voice dripping with contempt, Veronica replied, "I don't stand for people like you." The temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. Gasps rippled across the gallery. Some of Veronica's lawyers blanched, exchanging alarmed glances. The implication was clear. It was not just disrespect to the court, but a direct challenge to Judge Pierce, a black woman presiding over one of the most high-profile financial corruption cases in decades. The line had been crossed. Judge Pierce betrayed no emotion. Instead, she simply raised her gavel and brought it down with a resonant crack. "Remove Mrs. Lancaster from the courtroom immediately." Court officers approached. Veronica turned, incredulous fury blazing in her eyes. "How dare you touch me? I'll sue every last one of you," she spat as she was led away, heels striking the tile with every step. But the world kept spinning, and Judge Pierce calmly turned the page in her docket as if nothing had happened. Reporters scribbled furiously. For the first time in living memory, America saw one of its wealthiest citizens treated as an ordinary defendant. What none could know was that this was just the beginning of a battle that would shake the entire country. Veronica Lancaster was not used to losing control. She had survived corporate boardroom coups, political investigations, and personal betrayals, always coming out on top. She knew the power of image. Within the hour, her team had unleashed a media onslaught. Is Judge Pierce targeting white defendants? Does America have a problem with successful women? Carefully crafted talking points spread across newsrooms and social media, designed to twist the story into one of racial bias and judicial overreach. By evening, cable news was ablaze with debate. Pundits questioned Judge Pierce's impartiality. Old cases were dredged up and distorted. Anonymous trolls flooded social media, smearing the judge's name. Judge Pierce sat in her office late that night, scrolling through headlines and hateful comments. Her jaw set, knuckles whitening on her mug. She had prosecuted cartel leaders and mafia bosses, but never had she been the focus of a campaign this organized, this venomous. She turned off her screen and stared out at the D.C. night. She would not back down. She had come too far and sacrificed too much for that. As she reached her car in the near-empty parking garage, a white envelope caught her eye, wedged under her wiper. Her name was typed in bold letters. Inside, a single line, "Step back or you will regret it." Judge Pierce's pulse quickened, but she only slid the note into her coat pocket, scanning the darkness with new caution. Someone had been too close. It was a reminder that this was not only a battle of law, but of survival. Miles away, In a quiet Georgetown cafe, a man named Marcus Pierce swirled the ice in his glass, watching the rain. He had spent 2 decades as a federal investigator before leaving the bureau in disillusionment, but his loyalty to his sister was unwavering. When Evelyn called him, her voice barely betraying the stress, he listened quietly and then said, "You can't underestimate Veronica Lancaster. She's the kind who only threatens when she's desperate. If you keep pushing, she won't stop at warnings." "She picked the wrong judge," Evelyn replied, fire smoldering in her eyes. The next morning, Marcus began digging. Using old contacts, he traced the flow of money through Lancaster's Empire shell companies, offshore accounts, and suspicious wire transfers. He found a name that kept surfacing: Jennifer Caraway, a former assistant who had suddenly resigned and disappeared from public life months before. But Jennifer was not easy to find. When Marcus finally tracked her to a quiet apartment in Alexandria, she was nervous and thin, eyes haunted by secrets. "You don't know what you're up against," she whispered. "I know enough to know you're in danger," Marcus replied. "And so is my sister." Jennifer hesitated, but finally nodded. "Okay, I'll talk. But if I disappear, it's because they found me." As Marcus returned to his car, his phone buzzed with a blocked number. The message was clear: back off, or the next accident will be real. That same day, Judge Pierce was driving home when her car's dashboard lit up with error messages. The brakes locked. The wheel wouldn't turn. The vehicle veered off the road, slamming into a guardrail. Miraculously, she survived with only bruises, but she knew immediately this was no accident. In the hospital, Marcus confirmed her fears. "They hacked your car. This was a hit, Evelyn." Pierce's lips tightened. "Then they failed. And I don't quit." The trial continued amid a media circus. The courtroom was now surrounded by armed guards, bomb-sniffing dogs, and national news crews. Veronica Lancaster's legal team, headed by the infamous defense attorney Nathaniel Sloan, counterattacked by filing a motion accusing Judge Pierce of bias, producing evidence that she had allegedly ruled unfairly against wealthy white defendants in the past. Judge Pierce listened without interruption, then asked, "Do you have proof, or only rumors?" Sloan stammered, but had nothing. In that instant, Marcus entered the courtroom, handing a USB drive to the bailiff. It contained a trove of recordings, ledgers, and a mail spoof from Jennifer Caraway of years of bribes, blackmail, and illegal deals orchestrated by Lancaster. Judge Pierce turned to the defense. "Care to respond?" Sloan tried to object, but before he could finish, Veronica Lancaster herself stood up. "This is a witch hunt," she shouted, her voice echoing in the tense silence. Judge Pierce's reply was simple: "This is the law." Suddenly, a shot rang out. The courtroom dove for cover. Security subdued the shooter within seconds, a member of Veronica's private security, caught on camera taking payment days before. The attempt was not to kill, but to intimidate. Veronica smirked at Judge Pierce as if to say, "You see what happens when you don't play by my rules." Judge Pierce, unfazed, banged her gavel 3 times. "Order. This trial will proceed. No threat will change that." Outside, the investigation into Lancaster's empire continued. The FBI raided her corporate offices, uncovering encrypted files and naming dozens of politicians, judges, and law enforcement officials on her payroll. Among them was a governor, a senator, and several police chiefs. The scope of the conspiracy shocked even the most jaded agents. Inside the courtroom, the pressure mounted. Lancaster's team produced forged evidence, but Jennifer Caraway's live testimony dismantled every lie. "I saw her order the elimination of anyone who threatened her," Jennifer said, voice steady. "People disappeared. Some were ruined. Some never came home." Veronica Lancaster remained impassive. "Do you really think you can win?" she sneered at Judge Pierce. Pierce's answer was a steady gaze. "No one stands above the law. Not anymore." The final blow came when Marcus produced security footage and audio of Veronica ordering her security chief to take care of witnesses and teach the judge a lesson she won't forget. The trial concluded in a national spectacle. Veronica Lancaster, once untouchable, was found guilty on all counts: financial crimes, conspiracy, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice. Her legal team dissolved, her corporate empire collapsed, and politicians once loyal to her scrambled to erase the past. On sentencing day, the country watched as Judge Evelyn Pierce read the verdict. Veronica Lancaster, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Veronica, defiant to the end, laughed bitterly as she was handcuffed. You think you've won? I'm still the queen. You'll regret this. No one answered. No one cared. The crowd watched as she was led away, her reign broken not by scandal, but by the law she thought she owned. Yet the ripples did not stop there. In the weeks that followed, dozens of arrests swept through state houses, police departments, and boardrooms. The headlines blazed with the names of those brought down by the case: the governor, the senator, the corrupt police chief. Judge Pierce became a national symbol, a woman who had faced down the most powerful forces in the country and prevailed. Months later, a leak from a Department of Justice revealed that Judge Pierce was being considered for a seat on the Supreme Court. Her supporters hailed it as a victory for justice. Her enemies tried to smear her, but the weight of public opinion was unstoppable. One morning, as she left the courthouse surrounded by reporters, someone called out, "Judge Pierce, do you think justice has won?" She paused, then spoke for the cameras and for history. Justice is not a single battle, but a lifetime of struggle. Today, we proved that no one stands above the law. The words echoed across the country. But even as the dust settled, a new storm brewed. Two black women, Nicole and Tamara Carter, were arrested while jogging in a wealthy neighborhood, accused by officers who had been part of the same network Lancaster once controlled. The judge in their case, Harold Wentworth, was known for his thinly veiled contempt of minorities. In his courtroom, Nicole and Tamara faced sneers, mocking questions, and a prosecution that cared little for truth. But as their lawyer presented their records, both women were decorated military intelligence officers on assignment for the Department of Defense. The mood shifted. Suddenly, the court files went blank, marked top secret access denied. The judge, sensing danger, tried to bluff his way through, but the courtroom turned as a senior officer stood and produced evidence of corruption, bribes paid to the judge, illegal quotas, secret orders. The entire operation unraveled in minutes. The officers responsible resigned or were arrested. The judge himself was indicted. Nicole and Tamara, silent throughout, left the courthouse with quiet dignity. "This is just the beginning," Nicole murmured to Tamara as cameras flashed around them. But the system was not finished fighting back. A bomb detonated under the car of one of the arrested officers. The judge survived an assassination attempt, thanks to Nicole's quick reflexes. Tamara disarmed the shooter, revealing a hired assassin with ties to the deposed governor, a last remnant of Lancaster's cabal. In a final confrontation, Nicole and Tamara, with help from an honest detective and their own skills, exposed the shadowy hand behind the violence: Governor Alan Strickland, the architect of the system that had protected Lancaster. He was arrested on live television as evidence streamed across every network. His trial and those of his co-conspirators became the new face of a reckoning sweeping the nation. Nicole and Tamara disappeared into the crowd, their mission complete, but their vigilance undimmed. "There will always be another," Tamara said quietly. "But so will we." Judge Pierce's words lived on. Justice is not the end. It is the beginning. And somewhere, as the city lights glowed and the courthouse loomed against the night, America realized, for the first time in a generation, the law had fought back. In this time, it did not lose.